All started in Jamestown in 1978, where he was assigned after graduating from St. Petersburg Junior College. Here, let's have Frank tell you the story.
35, 40 guys here, and I remember I didn't play at all the first 8 or 10 games. I mean, not even pinch run, pinch hit, nothing, because we just had so many guys. And we were going to Auburn. I remember, just like it was yesterday, we were going to Auburn, and I started to get down because it was, you know, it wasn't going very well. And I went in and talked to Pat. We got the hotel in Auburn, and I went in and talked to Pat. I said, Pat, you know, I mean, I know I'm not the worst guy on the team, but I mean, am I ever going to get in the game? He says, you're in there tonight, buddy. And so I got 3 hits that night. And so I think he put it back in the next night, and I got 3 hits again, or 2 hits, at least 2 or 3. I can't remember what it was. And I started playing more, and then ended up having a real good year.
Yeah, it was made the All-Star team.
And you were the MVP that year, right?
MVP that year, right?
And I'm interrupting this, but what's interesting, you know, they always tell you who you can play. It's like with Wren, same thing with Gene Glenn. You know, they don't need to play. You know, if you need them, play them. And I mentioned I thought you were a middle infielder, but you ended up.
I played, well, I started out second base, but I didn't play in center.
And then you would play anything, so
Right.
it didn't matter.
Right.
And then so we moved around. You had certain guys you had to play,
Right.
which is
Tony Phillips, Glenn Franklin.
yeah. So telling them, I couldn't think of Franklin, but.
Yeah, he was telling
And then
stories
you
about
ended
the...
up being the All-Star. That's how smart a manager Daugherty was. You know, I got the guy sitting on the bench, and you know what happened? If you went 0 for 5, you know, you might not have got in for another 10 days, and pretty soon you're home.
Remember how I found out I made the All-Star team? We're driving to Niagara Falls, and Vince McNamara pulled the bus over. We're driving to Niagara Falls, and we just get outside of Buffalo, and
It's our last trip.
the state police stopped the bus.
Yeah.
And it's Vince McNamara. He didn't have time to go to because he was going to Geneva. He had to go to, I think he had to go to, what was the other team up there?
North?
No,
North Geneva.
just outside of where the Indians always were.
But yeah, Batavia.
Batavia. He had to go to Batavia to make a presentation. He said, I don't have time to go both places. He says, I'll make your presentation right here on this throughway. So we pulled off, and he asked me, and so Pat asked me to get the police stop the bus. So Pat says, Wren, come here. I didn't know. I didn't know what was going on because the state police stopped the bus. And Vince McNamara, congratulations, you made the All-Star team. Right on the side of the throughway. It was amazing. In '79 is when I had the first hemorrhage, which turned out later to be a brain tumor. I had surgery in '81, and then came here the second half. And
I was telling Greg that when you had called and said that you were sitting around and wanted to know if you could be a coach, that was in 80, that was when?
It was '81.
81.
Yeah, Geb came to visit me in the hospital, and he kind of threw it out there. You know, would you want to do it? And I said, I'd love to do it. I don't know if I'll be able to do it. This was before I even had the surgery. I was still in the hospital before the surgery. And then it also kind of worked out after that.
I was telling Greg, I know I asked Fanning, and Fanning said, oh, we better not. Something might happen to him.
Yeah,
And
I don't know. But I played half a year in '82, and then Geb offered me a coaching job to come here and coach with Moby. And so I coached here in '82, '83, '84. No, 82 and '83, following into '81 season with Pat. And then '84 I stayed in Gastonia and coached the whole year. And then '85 I came here as a general manager. I wanted to manage that year. I was going to manage Calgary. And Calgary got the AAA club. And so Eddie Creech went from Calgary to here. And that left me out of managing. And I was going to go, this is a funny story, I wanted to go manage someplace. So we were in the instructional league, and Pat and I would talk every day. You know, I finally met with Geb one day for lunch on a Sunday, and we came to agreement that he would let me go out and try to get another job as a manager, because that's what I wanted to do. But he didn't want to pay me. If I stayed, he didn't want to pay me any more than I was making. So Pat and I would talk. He said, we'll put the word out. So every morning, Geb would come in, you know those little pink slips for the telephone messages. Pat would write out, Chief Bender of the Reds called, Frank, call ASAP, and he'd leave it on the desk. And Geb would come in and he'd go, did you get this?
Who's calling Frank? Who wants Frank? That's Tamper. Do they know that's Tamper? I said, yeah, I don't know anything about it. But the next day,
he put Marty Scott, Texas Rangers call.
And I told Geb, I said, you know, Geb, I don't know if, but there's a lot of people want Frank. I said, you know, we have to keep him. We're going to have to give him some money. Well, he's going to get Geb's old. You got $1,000. Don't ever play this back in Colorado. I'll be fired. There's always $1,000 with Geb. Yeah. Always $1,000. But anyway, so we kept leaving those notes, and he'd always. We're dressing
Dick Ballers from Kansas City Royals.
Yeah.
Bill Shreffy, Dodgers.
And Geb would always come in, and when he walked in, that desk was his.
Yeah.
So I'd always just leave the slip, you know, right there. And if we're dressing, he'd say, who's calling you now, Frank? Who's this? What's... So I told Gab, I said, you know, I think the clubs want, you know, if we don't give him some more money. And then remember that day you were in the field, he had his briefcase out, and I'm walking by edging the batting.
Oh, I remember
and, you know, and you got more money.
I got
like $1,800 raise.
Yeah, got something more. And that's the first day he floated the idea of me coming here at the Jamestown. He said, well, did you ever think about being the general manager in Jamestown? And I said, no, never. I mean, that was the farthest from what I really wanted. And then,
it was a great experience for you.
oh,
Look back now.
no question. Because what I did is I went back after he asked me. I said, well, let me think about it for a day or two. And I called a few people. And one of the people I actually called was Murray Cook. And Murray was the general manager of the Yankees at that time, I think. He might have been. Anyway, I called Murray because I'd known him in the past, and I know he had done something similar. He'd been the business manager in Gastonia, I think.
Yeah, that's right.
And so I called him. I said, Murray, do you think that on the path I want to go, I mean, is this going to help me? He says, I would do it in a heartbeat. Mm-hmm. Learn more. And he was right. I learned more in that summer here, because you're a one-man show for the first 3 or 4 months, and then all of a sudden, you know, you get a few interns around, and
you moved up here. You got up here when?
Right after spring training, April 1st. Mm-hmm. I was the manager of the Jamestown team on the field in spring training, and then I left and came here to start selling advertising. And I had Larry Walker and Sergio Valdez. Well, the funny thing about Randy Johnson is when we signed him out of USC, and Pat was involved in that as far as the scouting standpoint, you know, our reports obviously were great on him. But when he got here, he had a sore arm. And so Murray was giving Jim a hard time about drafting a guy with a sore arm. Mm-hmm. And he was wanting Jim to avoid the draft, but he had a pre-existing injury he didn't disclose. And so his bonus check was sent down to me like 1st of July.
You kept it in the desk.
And I had it in my desk. I think it was 40 or 80,000.
Was it? Okay.
Something like 80,000, I think. So he was a second-round draft choice, and that time I think it was about 80,000. And he would come in every day. And he said, "Did my bonus come today?" I said, "I'm still waiting for it, Randy." It's sitting right there in the desk drawer. And I've been waiting. And Jim Fanning would call every 3 or 4 days, and you know, he said, "You know, you haven't given that check to Randy Johnson yet, have you?" He said, "They're driving me nuts here." He said, "I don't know why they want to avoid this." He said, "This kid's going to be a good pitcher. I don't know why they want to avoid this." Murray was really on him.
Gab too.
Was Gab too?
I was field coordinator then,
right.
And I can remember, and another thing, they really got down on him because at USC, he never touched the ball. He pitched the first game of a conference series on Friday. He'd start Friday and never touched the ball till the next Friday. They just let him. Well, here they're trying to get him to throw. We come in and throw 10 minutes and then day off in 10 minutes, and he totally balked at that. Mm-hmm. And then the pitching routine was where you throw every 5 days. Right. You got a couple days off. You take your bullpen. He wanted nothing to do with that. And he was different.
He was a different kid. He was a real different kid. He was very introverted. He was self-conscious about his height, self-conscious about his looks. I mean, he was self-conscious about a lot of things. It really, he had some problems that he had to get over. And it's funny because I talked with him last week when Houston was in town. Totally different guy. Yeah. I mean, now he's very self-confident. He's got a beautiful wife, 3 kids. He's happy as can be. And
if he can get a beautiful wife, then anybody in the world. But you know, he pitched 20 innings here. Did you see that? He pitched 20 innings here, allowed 25 hits, walked 24, and only struck out 23, and had an ERA of 5.5. I was thinking, he struck out 19 twice in his career.
Right.
He struck out more in 9 innings than he did here. People wonder about Jamestown baseball. Mm-hmm. He lacked 2 of striking out in 1 game what he did here in 3 games.
Right.
Yeah, he was 0-3. Frank has had a distinguished career, which has included the assistant general managership of the Florida Marlins, which resulted in the 1997 World Championship. Shortly thereafter, the doors opened wide for Frank Wren. Frank would spend a year as the general manager for the Baltimore Orioles. Then, after a not-so-interesting year in Baltimore, Frank moved on and became the assistant general manager for the Atlanta Braves.
But quite honestly, one of the greatest times I ever had in baseball was here in Jamestown. The 5 years I spent here, I got to know a lot of people. I've got a lot of very special friends.